Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
The Philadelphia Phillies just dropped a bombshell that has the entire baseball world buzzing, and trust me, this is one move that's going to have fans talking all winter long. In their first major splash of the offseason, the Phillies inked former World Series champion Adolis Garcia to a one-year, $10 million contract, and folks, this signing is sending shockwaves through the organization in ways you might not expect. This isn't just about adding another bat to the lineup or plugging a hole in the outfield. Oh no, this move has massive implications that reach far beyond what Garcia brings to the field. We're talking about the potential end of the Nick Castellanos era in Philadelphia, the uncertain future of fan favorite Brandon Marsh, and the tantalizing possibility that top prospect Justin Crawford might be closer to an everyday role than anyone anticipated. Let me paint you the picture of what just went down. Francis Romero broke the news that set social media on fire, revealing that the Cuban outfielder and the Philadelphia Phillies were finalizing this one-year deal pending a physical. The tweet emphasized that Garcia will look to contribute on a contending team while attempting to return to his absolutely electric 2023 offensive production, the season where he was named American League Championship Series Most Valuable Player. Yeah, that's right. We're talking about a guy who performed on the biggest stage when the lights were brightest, helping lead the Texas Rangers to a World Series championship. That's the kind of championship DNA this Phillies team has been desperately trying to inject into their roster. Now, before we get too carried away with excitement, let's pump the brakes for just a second and look at what Garcia brings to the table right now, because it's important to set realistic expectations here. The guy's coming off his age 32 season, and honestly, it wasn't pretty by any stretch of the imagination. Garcia posted 19 home runs and 75 runs batted in, which sounds decent on the surface. But here's where things get concerning. His on-base percentage was a downright ugly 271. That's the kind of number that makes hitting coaches wake up in cold sweats at night. Across 507 at-bats, he managed 115 hits while striking out 135 times, finishing with a 394 slugging percentage. Those aren't exactly the numbers that scream immediate impact player, are they? But here's where things get really interesting, and this is what makes this signing so fascinating from a pure baseball analysis standpoint. When you put Garcia's numbers side by side with Nick Castellanos, the comparison is downright eerie. Castellanos, in his age 33 season, hit 17 home runs with 72 runs batted in. His on-base percentage was 294, slugging 400, and across 547 at-bats, he had 137 hits and 133 strikeouts. Look at those numbers closely. They're practically identical in terms of overall production. So why would the Phillies essentially swap one struggling outfielder for another? That's the million-dollar question, and the answer might surprise you. The key to understanding this move lies in one word that doesn't show up in traditional batting statistics, but matters more than most casual fans realize. Defense, 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 defense. While Castellanos has been borderline unplayable in right field, Garcia is arguably one of the best defensive right fielders in all of baseball. Let me give you some context that'll blow your mind. Since 2025, Castellanos has posted a defensive runs saved metric of -11. That's bad, really bad. Garcia, on the other hand, posted a +16 in defensive runs saved in 2025 alone. We're talking about a swing of approximately 3 wins over the course of a full season just from the defensive upgrade alone. That's absolutely massive when you're talking about a team that's trying to get over the hump and finally win a World Series. Now, defensive metrics can sometimes be misleading, and I'll be the first to admit that. We all watch Castellanos go on that historic streak without committing an error, but let's be real. That wasn't because he was making spectacular defensive plays. It was because his range was so limited that he simply couldn't get to balls that other outfielders would have a legitimate chance at. There's a huge difference between not making errors and actually being a good defender. Garcia is going to get to balls that Castellanos could only dream of reaching. He's going to take hits away from opposing teams. He's going to prevent runs from scoring with his arm strength and accuracy. These are tangible, game-changing improvements that could make a significant difference over the course of a 162-game season. But there's another element to Garcia's game that has me genuinely excited about this signing, and it's something that doesn't show up in any statistic or metric. The guy brings swagger. He brings energy. He brings that intangible fire that this Phillies team has been desperately lacking. Think about it for a second. Who on this current roster really gets you out of your seat with their personality and passion? Sure, Bryce Harper has his moments of intensity, but beyond him, this team can feel sterile and businesslike. Trey Turner goes about his work quietly and professionally. Kyle Schwarber is the definition of even-keeled, never getting too high or too low. The pitching staff, guys like Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola, they're all business all the time. There's a real lack of expressive personalities that can energize a dugout and get a crowd fired up. Garcia is different. This is a dude who will bat spike after a big hit. He'll pound his chest after making a great catch. He plays with a level of emotion and passion that can be contagious to teammates and electrifying for fans. Sometimes teams need that spark, that guy who isn't afraid to show emotion and wear his heart on his sleeve. Could Garcia be that catalyst for the Phillies? It's entirely possible, and frankly, it's one of the most underrated aspects of this signing that nobody's really talking about. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, or should I say the elephant that's still technically on the roster, Nick Castellanos. With the Garcia signing now official, it couldn't be more clear that Castellanos' days in Philadelphia are numbered. We've been operating under this assumption for weeks, maybe even months at this point, but now it's basically written in stone. The Phillies have to find a team willing to take on his contract, or they'll have to make the difficult decision to designate him for assignment. Either way, this is a situation that needs to be resolved sooner rather than later. Castellanos is still under contract, still cashing checks from the organization, and having him in limbo doesn't benefit anyone involved. It's time for both sides to move on and start fresh chapters. This brings us to perhaps the most intriguing question surrounding this entire outfield situation. If Garcia is locked into right field and Castellanos is on his way out, what happens with the other two outfield spots? This is where things get really complicated and fascinating. There are multiple moving pieces here, multiple scenarios that could play out, and the Phillies have some serious decisions to make in the coming weeks. First, let's talk about Harrison Bader. According to reports from Todd Zolecki, the Phillies have expressed interest in bringing back the free agent center fielder. However, there's a caveat that makes this situation murky. One source indicated that the Phillies might move on from Bader if they're able to re-sign both Kyle Schwarber and JT Realmuto. Well, Schwarber has now officially been inked to a new contract, and all signs point to Realmuto following suit in the very near term. If that happens, do the Phillies have enough financial flexibility to bring Bader back? That's the question that nobody can definitively answer right now. For those who need a refresher, let me remind you what Harrison Bader brought to the table last season. This was the best season of his career, and the stretch he played with the Phillies was particularly impressive. Overall, he finished with 17 home runs, 54 runs batted in, a 347 on-base percentage, and a 449 slugging percentage. Across 448 at-bats, he collected 124 hits while striking out 136 times. Those are solid numbers, the kind of production you absolutely want from a center fielder who also brings elite defensive capabilities to the table. Here's my take on the Bader situation, and I think this is where the Phillies might be making a mistake if they let him walk. Bader hit free agency at the absolute perfect time in his career. He just had his best season, proved he can stay healthy for a full year, and showed he can produce at a high level both offensively and defensively. He should absolutely be looking to maximize his value and secure the best possible contract. I don't blame him one bit for that. However, the Phillies seem to be approaching this negotiation with the same level of caution they showed with Kyle Schwarber. The years on the contract might be just as much of a concern as the total dollar amount, especially with top prospect Justin Crawford waiting in the wings. The organization might not want to commit long-term to Bader. if they believe Crawford is ready to take over center field duties in the near future. And speaking of Justin Crawford, this is where the plot really thickens. According to Eric Kratz on Foul Territory, he heard from a pretty reliable source that it's Crawford's job to lose as the starting center fielder. Now, that's a bold statement, and it's the kind of declaration that can change everything about how this outfield ultimately shakes out. If the Phillies are genuinely planning to hand the center field job to Crawford, a 23-year-old prospect who has never played a single game at the major league level, that's a massive vote of confidence in his abilities and readiness. Let me be clear about something, though. Justin Crawford has done absolutely everything possible in the minor leagues to earn this opportunity. He's put up impressive numbers, shown elite speed and athleticism, and demonstrated the kind of baseball instincts that you simply can't teach. And the kid has pedigree, too, being the son of longtime major leaguer Carl Crawford. But here's the reality check that needs to be said. Minor league success doesn't automatically translate to major league success. It's one thing to dominate against AA and AAA competition. It's an entirely different animal to step into a major league ballpark and produce against the best pitchers in the world night after night with the pressure of playoff expectations weighing on your shoulders. The question that fascinates me most about Crawford is whether he'll primarily play left field or center field, because that distinction completely changes how the rest of the outfield puzzle comes together. Brandon Marsh, for example, has shown that he can be pretty seamless in left field. He gets to the right spots, reads the ball well enough, and covers ground effectively. But in center field, he can be sloppier than you'd expect, given his athletic tools. He'll take bad breaks on balls, misread trajectories, and generally isn't as polished as you'd like from your everyday center fielder. Bader, on the other hand, might not have the raw athleticism that Marsh possesses, but he reads the baseball at an incredibly high level. His instincts and positioning are elite, which is why he's been such a valuable defender throughout his career. If Crawford is going to play center field, maybe that makes Bader slightly less valuable to the organization, since they'd essentially be blocking each other at the same position. But if Crawford starts in left field, then bringing back Bader to hold down center becomes much more appealing. These are the kinds of strategic decisions that front offices wrestle with constantly, trying to balance present needs with future projections while managing payroll constraints. Now let's circle back to the Garcia signing itself and why I'm more optimistic about this move than most people seem to be. Yes, his 2024 season was disappointing. Yes, there are legitimate concerns about whether he can bounce back and recapture any semblance of his 2023 form. But here's what gives me hope. In 2023, Garcia was an absolute monster. We're talking about a 4.5 wins above replacement player who slashed .345, .328, and .508. He finished that season with 39 home runs and 107 runs batted in. He's had 2 seasons in his career where he's hit over 30 home runs, showing that the power potential is absolutely legitimate when everything clicks. More importantly, and this is what really matters in my opinion, Garcia was absolutely dominant during the Rangers' postseason run, when the bright lights were on, when the pressure was at its highest, when his team needed him most. He delivered. Being named American League Championship Series. Most Valuable Player isn't some participation trophy. It means you were the best player in a series that determined who goes to the World Series. That's real championship metal. And it's exactly the kind of experience and production the Phillies need from their roster. Here's my theory about what happened to Garcia in 2024. The entire Rangers organization basically fell apart after winning the World Series. It wasn't just Garcia who struggled. The whole team took a nosedive, dealing with injuries, underperformance, and the general malaise that can sometimes follow a championship season when guys aren't as hungry anymore. Sometimes a player needs a change of scenery to rediscover what made them successful. Sometimes getting out of a losing environment and into a winning culture can flip a switch mentally and emotionally. The Phillies are giving Garcia that opportunity, putting him in a situation where the expectations are high, the stakes matter, and every game counts toward postseason positioning. At the absolute bare minimum, even if Garcia never rediscovers his offensive production from 2023, the Phillies are getting a massive defensive upgrade in right field. That alone makes this signing worthwhile. If he can even give them league average offensive production while playing Gold Glove caliber defense, this is a win. And if by some chance he does recapture even 70% of what he showed in 2023, we could be looking at one of the steals of the entire offseason. That's the definition of a low-risk, high-reward signing. $10 million for 1 year? That's nothing in today's inflated baseball economy. If it works out, fantastic. If it doesn't, you move on next season with minimal financial ramifications. One interesting theory that's been floating around comes from some of the more connected Phillies insiders who think this Garcia signing might actually increase the likelihood that Brandon Marsh gets traded. Now, I'll be honest, my brain didn't immediately go there when I first heard the news, but the more I think about it, the more sense it makes. Marsh is still relatively young, has shown flashes of brilliance, and has legitimate defensive value. There are probably teams out there who would be very interested in acquiring him, especially if the price isn't too steep. If the Phillies believe that Crawford is ready for everyday duty and they're comfortable with Garcia and potentially Bader handling the other two spots, trading Marsh could bring back pitching help or other pieces that address different roster needs. Let me lay out what I think is the most likely outfield scenario if everything falls into place. You'd have Justin Crawford, Harrison Bader, Adolis Garcia, and Brandon Marsh as your top four outfielders. From a pure run prevention and defensive standpoint, that's actually a pretty solid group. Crawford brings speed and athleticism. Bader brings elite defensive instincts and center field coverage. Garcia brings the best defensive profile in right field the Phillies have had in years. And Marsh provides depth and versatility. But here's the thing, and I'm just being honest here, that's not a World Series championship caliber outfield. That's not a group that screams we put absolutely everything we could into improving this roster to compete with the best teams in baseball. Nick Castellanos won't be back. That's essentially guaranteed at this point. Max Kepler, the veteran outfielder who provided some depth last season, almost certainly won't return either. So yes, there's been turnover, and yes, Garcia represents an upgrade in certain areas, but did the Phillies do enough? That's the question that will linger throughout spring training and into the regular season. This organization has made it abundantly clear that their window is now that they're trying to win a championship before this core group of players gets too old or too expensive to keep together. Every move should be evaluated through that lens. The Garcia signing is nice. It's solid. It addresses some needs, but it doesn't feel like the kind of aggressive all-in move that signals a team willing to do whatever it takes to get over the hump. You know, maybe that move is still coming. Maybe Dave Dombrowski and the front office have something else up their sleeve that will complete this outfield picture and give fans real reason to believe this is the year they finally break through. Or maybe this is it. Maybe this is the plan, and we'll have to wait and see if it's good enough. One thing is certain, though. This offseason is far from over, and there are still plenty of moving parts and decisions to be made. The Phillies have officially added Adolis Garcia to their roster, bringing in a former World Series champion who knows what it takes to win on the biggest stage. Whether he can recapture his peak form remains to be seen, but the defensive upgrade alone makes this a worthwhile gamble. The real drama will come in the next few weeks as we find out what happens with Castellanos, whether Bader returns, how much opportunity Crawford gets, and if any other surprise moves materialize. This is exactly why the offseason is such a fascinating time to follow baseball. Every signing creates a ripple effect. Every move has consequences that extend beyond the obvious, and every decision shapes the trajectory of an entire season. The Phillies have made their first significant move of the winter. Now we wait to see what comes next. And trust me, there will be plenty more developments to discuss in the coming weeks as this roster continues to take shape and the picture becomes clearer about what this team will look like when pitchers and catchers report for spring training. So there you have it. The complete breakdown of the Adolis Garcia signing and what it means for the Philadelphia Phillies outfield moving forward. This is the kind of move that generates passionate debate among fans, and rightfully so. Some will love it, seeing the upside and potential. Others will be skeptical, focusing on last year's struggles and questioning whether it's enough. Both perspectives are valid, and only time will tell who's right. What do you think about this signing? Are you excited about what Garcia brings to the table, or are you concerned that the Phillies didn't do enough to truly upgrade the outfield? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because I want to hear what the fans are thinking about this move. Do you believe Garcia can bounce back and give the Phillies that championship caliber production they desperately need? Or do you think this is just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, swapping one struggling outfielder for another without really addressing the fundamental issues? Let's have that conversation. Let's debate it out because that's what makes following this team so engaging and entertaining. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Garcia signing and want to stay up to date on all the latest Phillies news, moves, and analysis throughout this crucial offseason, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. We've got so much more content coming your way, breaking down every significant development, analyzing every transaction, and giving you the insider perspective you need to truly understand what this organization is building toward. Don't miss out on any of the action. Smash that like button if you found this analysis helpful, and turn on those notifications so you're always first to know when we drop new videos covering the team. This offseason is shaping up to be absolutely wild, and we're just getting started. The Garcia signing is in the books, but there are still so many questions left to answer, so many decisions left to make, and so many potential moves that could completely change the complexion of this roster. Stay locked in, stay engaged, and let's ride this roller coaster together as the Phillies continue building a team they hope can finally bring a World Series championship back to Philadelphia.